Table or truth?
Okay, well, like I said, welcome to another episode. And what's on your radar, Mr. Tyson?
Okay, the New York Times reports that Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu gambled that a strong Hamas, but not too strong, would keep the peace and reduce pressure for a Palestinian state, which of course he has been against. So Netanyahu not only tolerated for years, but he approved cash payments from Qatar to the Gaza Strip until, of course, October 7th when Hamas attacked. And so, for years, Israeli intelligence officers even escorted Qatar officials to Gaza, where they doled out money from suitcases filled with millions of dollars. And so these cash payments have been an open secret. Actually, I don't know if you're familiar with last week tonight's program on HBO by John Oliver, but in November he had an episode that was titled Israeli-Hamas War, in which he covered that open secret that Qatar officials were sending millions of dollars in suitcases in the Gaza for Hamas. And there's little doubt after October 7th that Hamas used some of that money to finance
To do missions trips all over the Middle
their
East.
attack.
Yeah, that sounds about pretty suspicious. You can't prove it 100%, but I'd say 89% probable cause. And John Oliver is considered by many a foe to the conservative establishment. But give credit where credit's due. That's legit. That should have been covered more by everybody. And you know what? To be fair, I wonder what Ben Shapiro thinks about the recent turn of events going on in terms of some of this stuff like Jericho Wall and this. It's it's
Well, again, the United States has been backing a two-state solution for quite a long time. And it appears that Netanyahu has been sabotaging those peace talks whenever he had an opportunity because he didn't believe in the two-state solution.
So he secretly, this isn't provable, but he secretly believed in a one-state solution, Israel or bust, I'm guessing.
One could say that.
Huh. Well, that doesn't sound very charitable, does it?
No. And again, his approval ratings in Israel are not high, very low.
I could
And
imagine
that
they
was
are.
before October 7th, where they had demonstrations about some of the changes he was attempting to make in the judicial branch of Israeli government because he's been investigated for corruption for years.
Now, these scandals are becoming so frequent, we're getting into reruns now. But can we say manufactured crisis once more? Is that fair?
Well, what you're saying or alluding to is that Netanyahu somehow encouraged or allowed Hamas to do this attack in order to take the heat off of him and he would stay in power as long as there is a conflict.
Or maybe look like a savior and a victor if he could eradicate the Palestinians out of the Gaza Strip and then subliminally conquer it by destroying the credibility and the infrastructure of that area so bad that nobody in theory would want to go back. Hence encouraging refugees that have left out Palestine for the time being to just keep going wherever the hell they want, but back to their homeland.
Back to their home?
Their homeland of Gaza, I mean. Their territory, their rightful territory.
Have you seen pictures of Gaza lately?
I know that. That's what reinforces this so-called conspiracy theory. Now we're just doing like what they used to do in the 80s sitcoms. We're going into reruns of things we talked about in the last month. I talked about there was an article, I think it was like October 13th, 2023, something like 762. I'd have to look up the previous archives where I talked about that. I think it was the episode where we're talking about Russell Brand's 5 questions to ask anybody. And we went over some of this stuff.
Yeah, but we didn't go over this point where Qatar was sending millions of dollars to Hamas in suitcases.
And this was never covered by our credible mainstream media that tries to supersede truth more than our said show Table for Truth.
Well, this was covered by your
John Oliver, actually.
Well, it's not. This latest came out of New York Times.
Okay. Well, that was recent, but John Oliver was way ahead of the curve like 2 months ago.
Well, it was November, but yes, he had it as part of his coverage. And actually, I would recommend viewership or listenership to check out that particular episode.
Fair is fair. I concur. I'd like to check that episode out myself. Do you have any other thoughts on your mind? We had some other topics today. We don't have to revisit these things and live in the past and just
you're the one that brought this back up.
And, just full of it's supposed to be a place of higher learning, enlightenment, and coming together with various opposing views, but like two strands of DNA intertwining together to come up with one absolute masterful new creation that will bring us to a higher state of enlightenment. So please, Tyson, what else is on your mind?
Rudy Giuliani.
Rudy
Giuliani's defamation trial just began in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
And is expected to last about 4 days. 2 Georgian election workers, you may remember, Shay Moss and Ruby Friedman, are asking to be compensated for the severe emotional distress caused by Giuliani and his co-conspirators.
How much? How much?
Including mental pain, inconvenience, nervousness, indignity, insult, humiliation,
indignity and humiliation, maybe.
Harassment.
Okay, indignity, humiliation, maybe. But please, what do these 2 individuals do for a living again?
What do you mean? What they do?
These two victims that have been their lives were destroyed and sidelined so bad.
Shay Moss,
what do they do?
Was working. I'm thinking if it wasn't for the city or the county, but she was an election official.
Okay.
She asked her mother to come down because they need other people, particularly during election time. They need more people, part-time people, and her mother came down in order to assist to count the votes. Okay. And so one of the many false statements Giuliani made about Moss and Friedman was, quote, they were passing around USB ports like they were vials of heroin or cocaine.
Were they passing around
Unquote.
USB ports is the most important fact. Were they?
When asked during the January 6th committee hearing what was being passed between the two, Moss said it was a ginger mint.
A ginger mint and no doubt okay.
Right.
Which happened to look like a USB port, but okay.
No.
I'm trying to figure out how Giuliani could have come up with that idea.
All right. What they did in election counting places throughout the United States, someplace they had video cameras. And they had them on 24 hours so that because of all the crying about
that's fair.
Elections, they had that, which you can go on your local channel and watch them.
Okay.
Well, there was a video of that. And so what happened on that particular day was maybe it was around 11 p.m. or midnight. They were going to close for the night. So they took the uncounted sheets, put them in what Trump later called in Giuliani suitcases, but that's where they secure the election, the ballots, and then they put them under the desk. Okay. And they were getting ready to leave. The supervisor advised the election watchers, there was a Democrat and a Republican, that were closing up shop for the night. And so they left. Then, as they were packing up and securing the place for the evening, the phone rang. The supervisor picked up the phone. This is all in the video, and
Okay,
I watched it.
fine.
Picked up the phone, and because of what was going on nationally and publicly, they called and said, "We need to keep counting because we want to get the results out as soon as possible."
Okay.
So they didn't want to wait the 6-8 hours later to start counting again.
Right.
So supervisor turned around to Moss and Friedman and told them, "We're rolling back. We're going to continue to count." So what they did, they pulled out again, I got my air quotes up, suitcases, and pulled out the ballots and started counting the ballots.
Okay.
So this is where you hear Giuliani say that they brought in all these ballots from outside and pulled them out and started loading them in the machines. No, they were secured. And
There was absolutely no proof of that.
I'm sorry?
There was no proof of that, naturally.
Of them bringing an outside ballot?
Yeah.
No, because
it was all on camera.
It was all on camera. It was all on video. I watched the video. I sped through it to see where they put the ballots away.
That is defamation.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So this occurred, but what Trump did in one of his rallies, he played the portion of video where they pulled out the secured ballots out of the, as they called them, suitcases and started their counting.
But not taking into account what was going on behind the scenes.
Exactly. Or beforehand, where they secured them for the night as they were getting ready to leave.
Okay.
And again, one of the accusations was they got rid of the poll watchers so that they can put
do
in
it secretly and know.
Exactly.
But there weren't any poll watchers, right?
No, there were poll watchers, but because they were shutting down for the night, they were advised that we're closing so they left. And then, as I said, the supervisor got a call saying that we're going to continue to count.
Yeah, but isn't that sketchy without the poll watchers there?
Well, there's no requirement that poll watchers.
Yeah, but wouldn't that? And I suppose this is as good a time as any to tell your kids, and that's why you don't want to count election ballots without poll watchers there, because then you may be suspect to this kind of scandal happening, whether the accuser is right or wrong.
No, because you had a camera on
they had
it
to go to
that
court.
was there 24 hours.
But there were no poll watchers. That's still the problem.
No, that's not the problem.
That is a big problem.
Okay, in your opinion, that's a problem.
It just looks like I can see why people would be like, "What's up?" I mean, at the very least, even if they were proven,
the people, unlike in a lot of elections, could have watched it themselves.
That's like bringing a loaded gun to a like a peace rally.
Really?
I mean, it's just asking for trouble.
Really, that's like bringing a loaded gun anywhere.
I mean, now they have to account for themselves. Like, in other words, in all fairness, okay, I agree that this could have been slander from Giuliani's part, right? How much money did they need for emotional damages for being irresponsible enough?
Now that you've asked, may I continue?
By all means.
Okay. Giuliani has already been found liable for defamation and owes Friedman and Moss over $230,000 after failing to respond to parts of their lawsuit.
That's a lot of money for a misunderstanding based on the fact that they shouldn't have been doing this when there were no poll watchers.
Oh, I'm not done. That's what he owes them for not responding to discovery.
In all fairness.
That's not what they're asking now.
What are they asking now?
The top end is $43 million. I think it was.
Oh, geez. So that's making them look way better. You're right. It's not about the money. Well, that's good. I'm glad we cleared that out. So these two innocent poll counters, election counters, who did not create an ambiguity that could have arisen suspicion by not having any poll watchers there to supervise.
Poll watchers don't supervise.
Well, to watch the polls, right? Or watch the counting, I should say. Or just watch any chicanery going on. Is that fair?
Watch chicanery going on?
Any possible, probable, potential chicanery going on. Is that fair? It would have been a lot easier. That's like being at the airport and, a couple people come in. they're just reenacting a movie, but they didn't tell you that they're in a movie. So they bring their water guns, right? Their bandoliers, and these giant bowling ball looking things with like a candle coming out at the end of it.
And you know what happens at the end of that tale?
They get arrested because
Not
this was
necessarily
misconstrued. They were like,
may not be
just-
arrested. I don't know why arrested, but what happens is guns are drawn. They end up spread eagle on the floor.
Right, but emotional damage because like what if they had asked one of the other airport heads, but the word never got around to we'll say another airport head, right? And so there was a misconstruence here, but these people should have at least been like, we're coming into the building, ready to film our movie, and we didn't warn the current airport supervisor that we're doing the movie. So just to cover our butts, maybe we should at least like make sure everything is a little bit less suspicious looking. But then, of course, they're forced to spread eagle on the floor. They're patted down, and then, granted, it was a traumatizing experience. But you're almost like, well, maybe you should have at least thought about how to go and finish the account like this. Now, it's bad enough that they would sue the airport for $230,000 for emotional damage if no harm was done. Maybe, I don't know, maybe a couple psychiatric visits. I guess if we're going to be greedy, I mean, I don't even think I don't know if that's like worthy of a lawsuit unless like literally they lost their jobs and then you have to calculate whatever. But at the end of the day, $43 million? Really? And you're trying to claim to me that you're worth $43 million and you're not doing this now out of greed rather than like the common good.
Their lives were disrupted.
And their lives are worth $43 million. So the rest of their lives are going to incur
death threats.
They're still alive.
I
received death threats all the time when I was a kid.
Really?
Yeah, I wish you were dead.
Really?
I mean, not everybody, but
Really?
I was kind of a jerk. I asked for it. Not everybody.
I had two ladies that were doing nothing more to their jobs. The president of the United States mentioned them 18 times in his call to Raffensperger.
Who failed to let everybody know that this was going on, or what?
He was the Secretary of State responsible for all voting.
Right.
And Trump tried to talk him into finding 11,780 votes out of thin air because that's one more than he needed in order to beat Biden.
Obviously, all people have to do is recount those ballots too, right? I mean, at the end of the day, somebody else just has to go in there and recount the ballots and go, oh, you know what, they were right.
3 times. 3 audits in Georgia.
Right, and they were all found fine. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, fair enough. But the problem is their lives, I know human lives are invaluable. That's true. Okay, well, I get it. But at the end of the day, $43 million, man, that's a lot of money for emotional damage.
So, how about punitive? Any part of punitive doesn't?
So you hurt my feelings, and I'll sue you for $2 million because what if I had more emotional resilience and could see how, from a certain reference frame, there was a misunderstanding here, and clearly my political enemies aren't happy that I did this. There was a misunderstanding, so you know what? Screw you. I ended up, getting some punitive damages, but $43 million. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying their lives aren't worth.
If I remember the low end, I believe it was between 6. I could be wrong, but up to $43 million.
Okay, so at $6 million.
Yes.
Right?
Their lives
they didn't lose any limbs. So, they didn't lose their jobs. At the end of the day,
they couldn't work their jobs.
Well, for a year. So what about?
What
about a year's salary plus rent, plus because people were literally trying to kill them.
People threatened to kill them.
Okay, but did people were there bullet shots in their car? Not to try to sound callous about this. I'm just saying there was clearly there were bullet shots in their car, their house.
No,
they were doxxed. It's proven they were doxxed multiple times.
Yes, they were doxxed.
Okay,
there were people that came up and were and we could hear on the 911 call with Rudy Friedman.
They were swatted.
Where she said, and I believe it was that they were banging on the door.
Well, those people are nuts. Not her, but I'm talking about the people that would actually do that. That's fair. Now, that is worth punitive damages. I agree. I'm not downplaying their trauma. I realize that this was a misconstruence based on Giuliani's part, as you put it.
Giuliani and his co-conspirators
and his entourage. And at the end of the day, yeah, they should get compensated for some of that damage. But like, dude, I'm just saying, up to $43 million, man.
I believe that was the figure. I
guess I'm doing something. I mean, most of us work our asses off our entire lives, and we'll die maybe making, if we're lucky, $1 million, maybe $2 million. You know, maybe some others not. But at the end of the day, like, our net worth is just not $43 million. Like, I'm not saying we're not worth it as human life. I'm just saying, like...
And then what about punitive damage? You don't believe in punitive damage?
No, I believe in it, but, like, I have to just say, like, where is it, like, where you want retribution versus I want to take advantage of the situation in terms of the amount of money that I can incur from this situation?
Advantage. How about, again, what you not only want is to be some attempt, because their lives will never be the same.
That I understand, and I understand, like, there's some trauma there from that, but I mean...
But also a message or some pain to the person who's defaming.
What about all like the people that were convicted? Yeah, exactly. What about the people that were convicted during the Capitol riots that weren't necessarily breaking windows or anything, but they got some serious life?
Did they enter the Capitol?
They physically entered the Capitol because some cop waved them in.
Guilty.
Okay, just like the protesters about 3 weeks ago that were protesting pro-Palestine that entered the Capitol as well, and kind of weren't necessarily encouraged to go in there, but they just came in there and kind of disrupted.
Did they disrupt
they seem to
congressional proceeding?
They disrupted the protocol of the Capitol building.
Answer is no. They
did
not
breaking and transgressing through the halls of the Capitol building.
No, what they did was they protested. They didn't break into the Capitol building.
They didn't break down with a battering ram, but
was open.
They didn't have any police waving in,
did a demonstration, and were arrested for it.
I'm just kind of like I do understand. I do understand the retribution for punitive damages. I don't understand the magnitude that is being asked for. Like, I just think that's, I don't know if it's really about justice and balance. It should just be like, Giuliani's humiliated. He was wrong, and that's the way it is. And yeah, he should incur some punitive damages for like the repute of this, I guess. But what I'm still trying to bend my mind is, to what degree do you put a stop on the faucet of how much you should get back? I mean,
do you think Dominion was entitled to kneel?
We talked about this in a previous episode. Yeah.
So no, but you never said whether or not the price of a little over $750 million.
$1 billion. Yeah, actually, we did. I remember that episode because I edited it, and we were talking about like how Tucker Carlson ended up losing his job. Like, part of the deal was like that plus Tucker Carlson's head on a platter.
No, you're going beyond.
So people are exploiting the sense of justice here, I guess, is the real concern. You know who's the best people to talk to? Anybody listening to this freaking episode. What do you think? Okay, fine. By all means, leave a comment. Like, I would love to hear what the public thinks. You know, on a very wise sort of way, let's let the democracy decide. I'm not saying that this woman or her mom are in the wrong for wanting some sort of balance for the injustice they incurred due to what happened. I can see how this became an issue when they went against the traditional protocol and let themselves open for a suspect political attack. I'm not agreeing with it. I'm just saying, like, it's just unfortunate, right? It's just, you know, life goes on. I mean, like
it's
daily.
Unfortunate. It's the president of the United States sick his people on you for just doing your job. You did nothing wrong.
No, except that from a political strategy standpoint, if you count ballots on such a crucial moment in time without actual watchers there to kind of like checks and balance things out,
that's not their fault.
Then why are they there in the first place?
They're there just to count the ballots. That's
all
they were doing.
Well, then maybe her supervisor should have warned him and said, maybe this isn't wise to do, because at the end of the day, you know, if without the watchers there,
MAGA's going to come after you?
This is going to, yeah.
That's never happened in Georgia before
Well,
Georgia
it did
elections.
now, and maybe a supervisor should at least consider that.
Consider what?
What I just said. Because these poor women now were victims of circumstance, and it sucks. And I do
Victim
feel
of
for them.
circumstance?
Yeah, they may really not have known any better, but their supervisor should have at least had some foresight.
That Giuliani lied.
I don't know about Giuliani,
about what
but just
they were
that
doing.
some political detractors
What
might have
Trump
come up.
lied about what they were doing.
Well, not to that degree, but that some bad could come out of this. And so to keep the shenanigans at a minimum, let's just wait till morning, because what else can we do? I'm not saying
wait till morning.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's like it's totally.
There was a decision made.
Okay, I know it was. It looks like historically it wasn't the best decision made.
Why would you say that?
Without poll counts, because it became suspect enough that causes them in a state where unfortunately now they suffered emotional damage, even if they were going the extra mile. And it's too bad.
Poll watchers are not required.
Okay, well then this is what happens when poll watchers are not required.
You have
I feel bad for these women.
Camera. Yeah. On the facility.
But all things considered, now once one has to investigate the situation, it's tougher you may have to go through this emotional roller coaster, I guess. Wow. And that's why the 43 million up to seems a little bit like, I don't know, what do you guys think, the public? That's a lot of money, considering like all parties, some more than others, and I would say Giuliani are more culpable than the victims here. But things happen.
Giuliani is more culpable than the victims?
No, more culpable of like the screw up that happened.
You just said more culpable than the victims.
Yeah, of the screw up that happened than the victims. That's what I meant.
How are the victims culpable?
Because they and their supervisor unfortunately didn't consider the ramifications of what happens when you try to do this.
The supervisor's name was not used by President Trump. The supervisor's name was not used by Giuliani.
Well, he went out with he went out like a bandit, because he's the one that should be the one under the spotlight, not these simple poll counters, election vote counters.
And who do you blame for that?
The supervisor.
You blame the supervisor that Giuliani and Trump are calling Friedman and Moss out by name.
I don't know how that works. I'm just saying that as a third-person observer or a space alien watching from another planet and just checking out the radio signals of all this crap happening on some other distant remote planet, another part of the galaxy, I would say, yeah, the supervisor is in the wrong on this one, yeah? But anyway, there were some other ones here. Before we finish up, I think we have time for... thank you for this last episode. This was good. We must proceed to the next set of topics. For our next episode, I hope you join us for Table for Truth. Have a great evening, everybody. If you like our aims to bring about peace and prosperity to the human race by having this channel as a template on how to do civil discussion, hit a like and subscribe, and share the channel.